What's really unique about Paul Schweikher is if you look at photos of his projects and his built designs, very few of them look similar to the next. And maybe that's why he's not as well known today, because his style isn't so easily identified. Each project is very unique and very specific. My name's Dan Fitzpatrick. I'm the managing director and historian at the Schweikher House. I work for the Schweikher House Preservation Trust, which provides programming here on site at the historic house. We're in Schaumburg, Illinois, about 26 miles from downtown Chicago. The house was built in 1938. It was designed the year before in 1937. Paul Schweikher took a trip to Japan in the summer of 1937 and was very inspired on that trip to Japan, and on the boat ride back sketched the design for this house and his drafting studio, which is adjacent to the residence here. Paul Schweikher was a well-known, well-respected architect in the middle of the 20th century. He was not born in Chicago, he was born in Denver, Colorado in 1903. He moved here when he was a young man because his girlfriend moved to Chicago first, so he followed her out here in 1922. And then he took a drafting class at the Art Institute of Chicago. And he was very, very talented and encouraged to jump into architecture at that time with very little formal training. So he works for a variety of firms in the 1920s. Chicago is booming in terms of growth and architecture, and he then formalizes his education at Yale in 1927 to 1929. So Paul Schweikher visits Japan in 1937, and he is really inspired on this trip. He loves the Japanese approach that building materials can be the beauty of the house. And so he takes that philosophy and he plays around with just a few select materials in this house: wood, brick, and glass. Schweikher designs a 10-bedroom, 6.5 bath mansion in unincorporated Roselle, which is where we are today, now Schaumburg. And it is a really incredible house for a very modest, rural, agrarian, kind of farming community out here in what is now the suburbs, but not back then. And that leads to him moving out to this area. So on top of the commission for this barn renovation, Paul and Dorothy are gifted, as a thank you, the 7.4 acres where we are today. And so that's what brings them from Denver to Chicago, and then Chicago out here to unincorporated Roselle, now Schaumburg. Paul Schweikher builds the house in October of 1938, and Schweikher's focus on the materiality of the house is really what makes this space unique. He always said that of all of his designs, that his own house here in Schaumburg was the truest expression of what he felt was the way residential design could be and should be. So the Schweikhers lived here for 15 years. It was designed just for 2 adults. So it was designed for Paul and Dorothy Schweikher, which is why originally there was just 1 bedroom. In 1945, however, and perhaps because of a surprise, Paul Jr. is born. Both of the Schweikhers are in their early 40s at this time. And so at that point, and just a couple years later, now a family of 3 living here, a 2nd bedroom was added in 1947. Also that same year, an addition was added to the studio. Paul Schweikher's practice is very, very successful in the late 1940s. And as you've seen, it's a wide open space. So he adds a studio addition to allow for some privacy. And it really was a meeting space, kind of a small conference room to take clients and contractors into. The 3rd addition to the property that was done by Paul Schweikher was the garage that was added in 1951. And actually one of my favorite features of the property is the placement of that garage and model shop. It allows for a nice slow reveal as you drive up or enter the driveway. You do see a portion of the studio when you come off Meacham Road, but the house is then slowly revealed as you come around the garage. It's really a beautiful approach to the house. The Langsdorffs at that point move into the house, Martil and Alex Langsdorff. They're both from St. Louis, but they come up to the Hyde Park area in 1942 because Alex Langsdorff is a nuclear physicist, also a plutonium specialist, a brand new element, just a few years old, and he receives a call from Enrico Fermi to come up to the University of Chicago to work on the Manhattan Project. So that's what brings them from St. Louis here to Chicago first. So the Langsdorffs are looking for really For Alex, a shorter commute from the city out to Lamont, out to Argonne National Laboratory. They look at nearly 100 houses. And Martil is really looking for studio space to paint all of her paintings. Through a mutual friend of the Art Institute, Myrick Rogers, the Langsdorffs learn that the Schweichers are moving away to New Haven, Connecticut. And so the Langsdorffs take a trip all the way up here to Schaumburg to take a look at the house. Martil, who is a well-respected and well-known painter, falls in love with the house and really sees the house as art. Interestingly, the Langsdorffs, they rent from the Schweichers for 3 years. So they're living here from 53 to 56, but they don't own the house. At the time that Paul Schweikher signs on to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, I think he possibly considered moving back after his time at Yale. But knowing now that he's committed to Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon, at that point, they consummate the sale of the Schweikher house to the Langsdorffs in 1956. The Langsdorffs live here for the rest of their lives. Alex passes away in 1996, and Martil passes away in 2013, in her mid-90s. So Martil lived in this house for 60 years. And that really is how we show the house, is as the Langsdorffs lived in it. So the beautiful structure, the beautiful design and architecture is Paul Schweikher. All of the decorative items, the seating I'm on, the paintings, the book collection, the piano, all the decorative items throughout the house are all from the Langsdorffs. And so when guests arrive and experience the house, it's very relatable. We hear this comment from guests all the time, that they feel like they could live here. So in the mid-1980s, the property transitions to the local water treatment facility because they thought they'd need to expand their water treatment plant for the common good. And the Langsdorffs then sold the house to the water treatment organization. The Langsdorffs, however, in the sale of the house, with a very good attorney, had the ability to remain in the house even though they sold the house. And ultimately, that's really what does save the house in the end. So the Langsdorffs are allowed to live here in their former home, and the water treatment facility now owns the property and needs to maintain it. It really essentially becomes landlords of the home. The water treatment facility realizes that they don't need to expand that plant. And around this time, the house is put on the most endangered list by Landmarks Illinois, a well-known preservation organization. Around the time of the sale back in the 80s, the house is also put on the National Register of Historic Places. However, that does not protect the house. It is simply a recognition of its importance. So 1999 arrives, and the village of Schaumburg steps in and sees this house as a cultural asset, and they facilitate the purchase of the house from the water treatment facility. And so now we've had our fourth and current, as of today, owner of the Schweikher house. So 4 owners, yet only 2 families have lived here. Martil was able, obviously, to live in the house until her final days in 2013. Another real unique aspect of this house is this kind of open floor plan and a real focus on the flow of the space. Also, the sense of scale and proportion is really executed so well. The footprint and square footage of the main living space, the living room and dining area, is not that large. But with the 12-foot tall ceilings, we have a lot of volume here, allowing for these tall windows and doors to bring a lot of natural light, but also to let the space open up as well. So the tall ceilings offer a volume that is very comfortable, not too tall, not too small, really just right. So these subtle cues of material can help understand how the space flows very well. One of my favorite features of the house are these beautiful redwood-clad closets. They are affixed to hollow core doors, one of the few materials that are kind of off the shelf and not made here on site. The tongue and groove redwood boards are affixed to the hollow core door, and Schweikher very thoughtfully leaves off a board for a handle hold. And what's really neat is that absence of the redwood board for the handle hold provides a real significant definition and a real kind of defining characteristic of this real strong banding that goes across the closet doors. That also is in alignment with the lintel of the fireplace in the bedroom space. And that also is in turn in alignment with the window frames that kind of separate top and bottom windows. Very, very thoughtful, elegant assemblage of materials, which just look like doors initially, but the longer you look at them, the more thoughtful one sees Schweikher bringing materials together. And the absence of something creates definition. We have a very successful public-private partnership. Martil, along with Todd Wenger, starts the Schweikher House Preservation Trust, which oversees the public programming here, while the village of Schaumburg maintains the house. And over the course of their ownership for 26 years now, they have been great stewards of the house, providing maintenance such as roof replacement, mechanical replacement, etc. So today, the house is open for guided tours. We get visitors from all around the world that love coming here to learn about the architectural history of the house, but also even the local history, because this house spans such a long time period. It's also available for rentals. We do film shoots, we do product shoots, and is available on a rental basis, as well as for private events too. Our goal is to ensure the house remains in its near original condition. And also, we really want to share this house as much as possible in a very delicate way, in a very measured way. But we do want to encourage folks to take a guided tour, to not just look online and see photos of the house, but to come and experience the space, the light, the airiness, and the volume of this beautiful, beautiful early modernist house from 1938.